The tent was quiet, save for the soft hum of the generator outside and the occasional rustle of maps and gear. Inside, the air carried the faint scent of sweat and metal, a reminder that this was a place where life and death were decided daily. Navy SEAL Team 6 had gathered, each man a picture of focus and discipline. They had trained together for years, yet no amount of preparation could erase the weight of what lay ahead. The tension was almost tangible, like static before a storm. Commander James "Hawk" Reynolds stood at the head of the table, tall and imposing, his eyes scanning each member of the team with a mixture of pride and concern. His face, chiseled from years in combat, bore the faint lines of countless missions, each wrinkle a silent testament to battles fought and survived. He cleared his throat, and the room fell into silence, every man instinctively straightening, hands resting lightly on the edges of their equipment. "Gentlemen," Hawk began, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable weight. "What we're about to do is high risk, high stakes. We've trained for this, and I trust every one of you to execute with precision. But understand this, we're entering territory that isn't forgiving. One mistake, one misstep, and it could be the last." He gestured toward the maps spread across the table. The valley they were tasked to enter was marked in jagged lines, ridges cutting sharply across the paper, valleys deep and shadowed. Enemy positions were uncertain, though intelligence suggested a well-entrenched insurgent group occupied the high ground. Each line on the map represented a potential threat, a deadly obstacle waiting to catch them off guard. Lieutenant Mark "Ghost" Sullivan, the team's intelligence officer, traced a route with his finger. Satellite imagery shows multiple vantage points along the northern ridge. They're likely to have clear lines of fire down into the valley. Any approach will be under observation, possibly ambush. Hawk nodded. "Which is why we move fast, we move silent, and we move smart. We avoid detection where we can. But if it comes to a firefight, remember your training. Trust your instincts, trust your brothers beside you, and never stop moving." The team exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing among them. Each man knew that what lay ahead was more than a mission. It was a test of endurance, skill, and courage. Private Daniel "Doc" Harris, the medic, adjusted the straps of his pack, his mind racing through protocols and emergency procedures. He had treated countless injuries, but the thought of facing them in a valley hundreds of miles from backup made even him uneasy. Outside the tent, the wind howled across the mountain range, rattling the canvas walls like a warning. The desert cold bit had exposed his skin, carrying with it the faint scent of dust and distant fire. It was a harsh environment, one that punished weakness and rewarded vigilance. The team had trained in simulations, in mock valleys and forests, but nothing could truly replicate the stark isolation of the terrain they were about to enter. Hawk tapped a metal pointer against the map. "We'll insert at 0400 hours. Darkness will be our ally. We move down the eastern ridge, maintain radio silence unless absolutely necessary. Doc, you're on point for med-evacuation readiness. Ghost, comms, and intel. Everyone else, positions and formations as drilled. Questions?" Silence filled the tent. No one questioned the plan, not out of fear, but because they trusted it implicitly. They trusted Hawk. They trusted each other. In their line of work, hesitation was deadly. Yet, beneath that professional composure, a subtle unease lingered. Every man felt it, the awareness that the valley below was unknown, dangerous, and likely unforgiving. Hawk's gaze swept the room again, resting momentarily on each face. "Look, I won't sugarcoat this. We're walking into a hornet's nest. Odds are not entirely in our favor, but we've faced worse. And we've come out alive because we're prepared, and because we fight as one unit. Remember that. Stay sharp. Stay aware. And above all, come back to me. He let the words hang in the air, weighty and commanding. The team absorbed them silently, internalizing the gravity of the mission. Every man felt it, the mix of fear, adrenaline, and determination that defined the moments before a battle. Private First Class Aaron Sparrow Mitchell, the youngest member of the team, ran a hand over his tactical vest. He had trained for years for this moment, yet his stomach churned with apprehension. He glanced at his teammates, their calm faces betraying nothing, and drew strength from their composure. Here, courage was not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. A briefing continued, focusing on contingencies, evacuation routes, and enemy engagement scenarios. Hawk emphasized improvisation, adaptability, and the importance of maintaining unit cohesion under fire. He recounted past missions, illustrating how small decisions had saved lives or ended them. Each story was a lesson, a warning, a reminder that in combat there was no room for error. Ghost leaned over the map again. Satellite feeds show minimal cover along the main descent. We'll need to use natural formations, rocks, ridges, and depressions for concealment. Any noise could compromise us. Approach with patience, assess constantly, and move deliberately. Hawk's voice was firm. Every second counts. Every step counts. And remember, we are never alone. We have each other. Watch your six. Communicate silently through hand signals if needed, and trust your training. When the moment comes, instinct will carry you. The team went over equipment one last time. Rifles were cleaned, scopes adjusted, and ammunition counted with meticulous care. Packs were checked for medical supplies, explosives, rations, and communication gear. Every item had a purpose. Every omission could be fatal. Precision mattered in every action, no matter how small. As the briefing concluded, Hawk stood silently for a moment, looking out the small flap of the tent at the sprawling valley below, bathed in the fading light of dusk. The landscape was beautiful, cruel, and indifferent. Mountains loomed like silent sentinels, shadows stretching across the rocky expanse. In that quiet, the enormity of the mission settled upon the team. They were stepping into a world that offered no guarantees, where every sound could signal life or death. Finally, Hawk spoke again. Get some rest. Stay hydrated. Eat lightly. We move at 0400. Remember, trust each other, trust yourselves. Bring each other home. The team nodded, a silent ritual of commitment and camaraderie. One by one, they dispersed to their sleeping areas, each man lost in thought. Some prayed quietly, others reviewed plans mentally, and a few simply stared into the darkness, feeling the weight of the mission pressing down on them. As night fully descended, the wind intensified, carrying the promise of cold and danger. The SEALs lay on their cots, listening to the rhythmic hum of the bass, their minds a mixture of anticipation and dread. Outside, the world was silent, but inside each man, a storm of thoughts and emotions raged. They were ready, or as ready as anyone could be. In the darkness, the tent walls flapped gently, a fragile barrier against the harsh reality beyond. The SEALs slept fitfully, dreams of combat blending with memories of home, laughter, and loss. Tomorrow, the valley would demand everything they had, and they would give it because they were SEALs, because they were brothers, because they had no other choice. And somewhere in the back of their minds, the silent thought lingered. Once they moved into the valley, there would be no turning back. The first hints of dawn painted the mountain peaks in pale gold and crimson. The SEAL team moved like shadows, each step deliberate, measured, as they descended toward the valley. The air was thin, crisp, and biting against exposed skin, carrying with it the faint scent of dust and pine. Every sound seemed amplified, the distant call of a bird, the scuff of boots against rock, the occasional rattling of loose stones. The terrain was unforgiving, a jagged labyrinth of cliffs, ridges, and treacherous slopes, each turn a potential trap. Commander Reynolds, Hawk, led the column, his eyes scanning constantly. Every ridge, every dip in the earth was a possible enemy stronghold. Behind him, Ghost and the team adjusted their movements, using the natural cover of rocks and sparse shrubs. Doc stayed alert, ready to respond to injuries, while Sparrow followed closely, absorbing every detail, every silent command. The young SEAL's heart pounded, adrenaline coursing through his veins, but he forced himself to focus, to observe, to anticipate. The descent was slow. Loose stones shifted underfoot, making stealth a challenge. The men had trained for this countless simulations of hostile terrain, but the valley was alive in a way no training ground could replicate. Shadows stretched and shifted with the rising sun, creating illusions of movement. Hawk paused, signaling the team to stop. The valley below was shrouded in mist, making visibility poor and masking potential threats. "Eyes up," Hawk whispered, barely moving his lips. The SEALs froze, scanning the surroundings with rifles ready, fingers lightly on triggers. Every ridge could conceal a sniper, every depression a hidden enemy. Silence was their ally, but the valley seemed to hum with anticipation, as if it knew intruders had arrived. Sparrow felt a bead of sweat slide down his temple, though the air was cold. His breathing was shallow, controlled, a habit drilled into him through months of training. He forced his mind to catalog every detail, the angle of the ridges, the positions of rocks that could provide cover, the faint trail of smoke curling in the distance. Every observation mattered. Mistakes could cost lives. As they progressed, the valley narrowed. The cliffs pressed closer, jagged and unyielding. Loose gravel crunched underfoot, and Hawk's gloved hand shot out, signaling caution. The men flattened against the rocks, waiting for an opening, ears straining for unnatural sounds. Somewhere above, the wind whistled sharply through the ridges, a warning that the environment itself could be as deadly as the enemy. Ghost gestured silently, pointing to a series of depressions and boulders that could serve as temporary cover. The team moved as a single unit, each man understanding his role instinctively. Doc carried additional medical gear, his eyes scanning for hazards, aware that even a simple slip could lead to a serious injury in this unforgiving terrain. Suddenly, a faint metallic click echoed across the slope. Hawk froze, raising a hand. Every SEAL instinctively hit the ground, rifles leveled and ready. Sparrow's stomach tightened. The valley seemed to contract around them, oppressive and tense. Every rustle of vegetation, every shifting shadow became a potential threat. Minutes passed like hours, the SEALs holding their breath, waiting, listening. It was nothing, a piece of loose rock tumbling down the slope, but the scare reminded them of the constant danger. Hawk exhaled slowly, signaling the team to resume movement. Yet the moment left them more alert, more aware of the precariousness of their position. Each step forward was deliberate, carefully calculated, a balance between speed and caution. The SEALs descended further, moving in a staggered formation to maximize cover and field of vision. The valley floor was littered with debris-twisted metal, broken tree branches, and the occasional remnants of previous battles, forgotten by the world, but not by the men who now walked through it. Their shadows stretched long across the rocky terrain, merging with the morning mist, making them ghostly apparitions in the valley. Hawk paused near a jagged outcrop, kneeling to study the terrain below. He gestured for the team to halt, scanning the area with binoculars. "Enemy positions are still unclear," he whispered. "We move slow. We move smart. Eyes up, trigger fingers ready." His voice was calm, but there was an unspoken urgency in his tone. The SEALs adjusted their formation, covering angles and entrances, every man moving like a shadow, silent and deliberate. Sparrow felt his adrenaline spike. Every step deeper into the valley heightened tension. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional distant rock slide or bird call. He felt exposed, vulnerable, yet strangely alive. It was the paradox of combat. Danger heightened awareness, fear sharpened senses, and every small victory like clearing a narrow pass without detection felt monumental. Hours passed as the team made steady progress. The sun climbed higher, slicing through the mist and casting sharp shadows. The valley floor widened slightly, giving a brief sense of relief, but Hawk knew better. Wider terrain meant fewer places to hide if the enemy appeared. He signaled a short break, allowing the team to catch their breath, check equipment, and silently acknowledge the distance they had already covered. Doc checked Sparrow's pack and gear, offering a nod of approval. "You're good," he said quietly, his tone calm but carrying reassurance. Sparrow returned the nod, though inwardly he was still tense, every nerve alert. They were a long way from extraction points, deep in enemy territory, and every step forward brought both progress and peril. Hawk studied the map again, cross-referencing the terrain with what they observed. He pointed to a series of ridges that would provide cover for the next leg of the descent. "We take the northern path. Less visible, more rocks for concealment, but watch for sniper nests. Move fast, then flatten. We keep momentum." The team acknowledged with silent hand signals, moving into position like a living, breathing unit. As they progressed, the valley narrowed again. The cliffs loomed taller, their jagged edges casting long shadows. The wind grew colder, howling through narrow crevices, carrying with it a sense of foreboding. The SEALs moved in tight coordination, each man attuned to the others, every motion practiced yet alive with instinct. Hawk's eyes darted constantly, scanning for enemy movement, listening for the faintest hint of danger. Ghost spotted something, a glint of metal, half hidden in a crevice. He signaled Hawk, who approached carefully, rifle raised. It was a discarded piece of equipment, likely from a previous patrol, but the reminder of human presence added weight to their unease. Somewhere in this valley, they were not alone. As they reached a particularly narrow stretch of the valley, Hawk gestured for silence. The path ahead was littered with loose gravel, making stealth nearly impossible. They moved slowly, each step deliberate, using the boulders as cover. Sparrow's heart pounded with every scrape of rock beneath his boots, every whisper of wind through the cliffs. He forced himself to focus, to move as a single unit with his brothers. The morning stretched toward noon, the sun high in the sky, casting sharp contrasts across the valley floor. The SEALs paused again, scanning the ridges above. Hawk's sharp eyes caught subtle movements, shadows shifting, a faint disturbance in the dirt. He signaled the team to halt and crouched low, gesturing for observation. The enemy could be anywhere, and every second mattered. Minutes passed, slow and tense, until Hawk motioned forward. They resumed the descent, moving like ghosts across the rugged floor. Each SEAL was acutely aware of the environment, the rocks, the cliffs, the faint scent of danger. The valley was both a path and a trap, a test of skill, patience, and nerve. By mid-afternoon, the SEALs had covered several miles. The valley widened into a shallow basin, but the cliffs still towered above, watching, silent and unyielding. Hawk signaled a short halt, allowing the team to rest briefly, hydrate, and check equipment. Despite exhaustion, the men were alert, every sense tuned to the environment. The valley had not yet revealed its full danger, and they knew the hardest part of the descent might still lie ahead. Sparrow found a moment to glance around, taking in the sweeping view of the valley. It was stark, breathtaking, and merciless. The beauty of the landscape was juxtaposed with the ever-present threat of death. He felt a strange mix of awe and fear, a reminder that in combat, Life and danger coexist in an intricate, unforgiving balance. Hawk studied the map again, plotting the final leg of the descent. The ridges above would likely harbor enemy positions, the narrow path below leaving little room for error. "Keep tight," he whispered, voice barely audible. Eyes open. "Move as one." Nothing triggers panic but preparedness. The team prepared to descend further, knowing that the valley would soon reveal its secrets, some deadly, some unpredictable. Each man adjusted his grip, checked his footing, and relied on the silent bond that had carried them through countless missions. They were not merely soldiers moving through terrain. They were brothers moving through a gauntlet of danger, trusting each other, trusting their training, and trusting that they could survive whatever lay ahead. The valley awaited, indifferent and dangerous, every step a test. And the SEALs, silent, precise, and focused, moved forward into its depths. The valley floor stretched wide, bathed in the harsh midday sun, but the SEALs knew better than to let the calm deceive them. Every rock, every shadow, every ridge could conceal danger. Commander Reynolds, Hawk, signaled a halt, scanning the surrounding cliffs with binoculars. He caught subtle movements, dust disturbed on higher slopes, a glint of metal in the distance. His chest tightened with the familiar thrill and fear of the unknown. Something was waiting for them. Before he could warn the team, the first shots rang out a sharp, staccato crack that tore through the valley's silence. Bullets pinged against rocks, scattering debris, throwing up dust clouds. The SEALs dove instinctively for cover, rifles raised, adrenaline surging. Sparks flew as rounds struck stone and metal, and the calm measured world of seconds before the ambush dissolved into chaos. Contact. High Ridge, 3 o'clock. Hawk shouted, voice cutting through the roar of gunfire. Every man reacted instantly, scanning, firing, moving in trained precision. The enemy was well positioned, concealed behind rocks and sparse vegetation, taking advantage of the height and the sun in the SEAL's eyes. Sparrow's heart pounded. His training kicked in, but nothing prepared him for the terror of bullets flying inches from his body, kicking up dust and rock fragments. He returned fire cautiously, relying on instinct and the coordination drilled into him over years. Every shot had a purpose, every movement a life or death calculation. Doc stayed close to the center, eyes scanning for injuries, fingers ready to administer aid at a moment's notice. Sparks of fear mingled with adrenaline as he ducked behind a boulder, treating minor cuts as he moved. One wrong step, 1 second of hesitation, could cost them everything. Hawk took a deep breath, forcing calm into the chaos. Suppressing fire. Move left. Delta Team, cover that slope. His voice was a lifeline, anchoring the team amidst the storm of bullets. They responded in seamless motion, men moving as one organism, instinct and training fused into action. The enemy was relentless, firing in coordinated bursts, taking advantage of the terrain and their vantage. The valley became a theater of noise and motion. Rocks exploding under rounds, dust clouds rising, shadows moving unpredictably. Hawk's eyes swept constantly, calculating angles, assessing threats, predicting enemy maneuvers. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but never outtrained. A sudden crack drew Hawk's attention. One of the SEALs' positions was under heavier fire. Sparrow. Suppress and flank left. Hawk barked. Sparrow rolled over loose gravel, firing at the silhouetted figures on the ridge. Bullets tore through stone and dirt, forcing the enemy to take cover. The SEALs were not invincible, but they were disciplined, methodical, and lethal. Time stretched. Seconds became minutes, and minutes felt like hours. Every sense was heightened. Hawk could feel the heat of gunfire on his back, the grit of dust in his mouth, the adrenaline pounding in his veins. He caught a fleeting glimpse of movement, a figure trying to maneuver along a higher ledge. He fired instinctively, the rifle kicking in his hands, and the movement ceased. Somewhere in the chaos, a whisper reached Sparrow. "God isn't with us." He froze briefly, the words heavy and raw, echoing the fear gnawing at every man. It was the unspoken dread that settled in when survival seemed uncertain. But he pushed it down, replacing it with focus, training, and the trust he had in the team. Fear was natural, but panic was deadly. The SEALs were pinned temporarily, forced to rely on cover, suppressing fire and each other. Hawk signaled for Ghost to assess communications, but static and interference rendered the radios unreliable. The valley's shape, the enemy's skill, and the distance made calling for support nearly impossible. Every shot, every movement had to count. Suddenly, a grenade exploded nearby, throwing a shower of rock and dirt into the air. The force knocked Sparrow backward, dust filling his mouth and nose. He coughed, spat grit, and returned fire, heart racing. The enemy was coordinated, using every tactical advantage. The SEALs had to improvise. Hawk saw an opening, a slight depression to the left, partially shielded by boulders. "Move! Cover fire now!" he shouted. The team surged as one, bullets ricocheting off rocks around them. They pressed forward, using the terrain to shield themselves. Every movement calculated, every second a fight against physics and fate. Doc moved to check a minor wound on Delta Team's rear element. "You good?" he shouted over the gunfire. A man nodded, blood smearing on his sleeve. "Keep moving," Doc replied, urgency in his tone. Medical protocol was secondary to survival in the middle of an active ambush. As the firefight raged, the SEALs began to notice a pattern. The enemy was focused on pinning them in place, funneling them toward a specific area of the valley. Hawk signaled subtle movements, hand gestures, and short bursts of fire to break the rhythm. Every decision had to be precise, every movement strategic. One misstep would cost lives. Hours seemed to pass in moments. The valley was alive with the roar of bullets, explosions, and shouted commands. Hawk's mind raced. Every tactic, every route, every cover point had to be accounted for. He could feel the weight of responsibility, the burden of keeping men alive, the knowledge that mistakes were lethal. Sparrow noticed another SEAL pinned behind a rock, struggling to maintain position under heavy fire. He moved instinctively, suppressing the enemy as best he could, heart hammering. The world had narrowed to the rhythm of bullets and breath, instinct and trust. The enemy's fire began to waver slightly, but the SEALs knew better than to assume victory. Hawk scanned the ridges, assessing options. The valley, once silent and deceptive, was now a maelstrom of chaos. Every boulder, every shadow, every sound carried meaning. Survival depended on awareness, discipline, and the silent bond among the men. As the sun reached its zenith, Hawk realized they could not hold in their current position indefinitely. They needed a plan to regroup and maneuver, prepare for tactical withdrawal to secondary positions. He shouted, signaling Delta and Charlie teams. The move had to be synchronized, precise, and swift, or it would invite disaster. The team moved under fire, using the natural cover of the valley floor. Bullets ricocheted, dust clouds erupted, and the air was thick with smoke, grit, and tension. Every step was a gamble, every movement a testament to training and trust. Sparrow's legs ached, his lungs burned, but he pressed on, guided by instinct and the knowledge that retreat was survival, not defeat. Minutes blurred. The valley, once a place of cautious descent, had become a crucible, testing every skill, every nerve, every ounce of courage. The SEALs moved like a single entity, flowing with the chaos, adapting to every threat, surviving against overwhelming odds. And then, in the midst of the chaos, a lull, a brief pause in the gunfire. The enemy seemed to hesitate, giving the SEALs a fleeting moment of relief. They crouched, catching their breath, reloading, and reassessing. Hawk's eyes scanned the ridges above, searching for any sign of renewed attack. Sparrow finally allowed himself a brief glance around. Dust swirled in the sunlight, shadows stretched and twisted across the valley floor, and the enormity of what they had just endured settled in. They were alive, but barely. Every man bore the marks of the fight scrapes, bruises, cuts, and exhaustion etched into their faces and bodies. Yet there was no time to dwell on relief. The battle was not over, and the valley had more secrets to reveal. Hawk signaled the team to regroup, moving them to a slightly higher ridge for cover. They had survived the initial ambush, but every step ahead carried risk. The valley had tested them, stripped them down to raw skill and instinct. They had survived, yes, but only because of discipline, training, and trust in one another. And yet, in the quiet pause between bursts of gunfire, the whisper of doubt lingered. "God isn't with us," someone muttered under his breath, echoing the fear that had gnawed at each man during the ambush. But the SEALs pressed on, driven by necessity, courage, and the bond that bound them together. They had survived this first storm, but they knew more challenges lay ahead, deeper in the valley, where danger would not wait, and mercy was a stranger. The valley, once a landscape of cautious anticipation, had transformed into a theater of chaos. Dust lingered in the air like a grim fog, stirred constantly by ricocheting bullets and the shuffle of boots over rocky ground. The SEALs had survived the initial ambush, but survival alone did not ensure victory. Each man was acutely aware of the danger that still surrounded them. Every ridge, every boulder, every shadow could conceal a sniper or an enemy squad waiting to strike. Commander Reynolds, Hawk, crouched behind a jagged rock, binoculars in hand. His eyes scanned the ridges and slopes above, noting patterns in enemy fire, potential weak points, and safe paths for maneuver. Sweat and grit coated his face, the remnants of the firefight still echoing in his chest. Every decision now carried immense weight. They could not remain pinned in this exposed position. The SEALs needed to adapt, improvise, and reclaim control, or risk being overwhelmed. Delta Team, cover the east slope. Alpha Team, suppress fire on the northern ridge, Hawk ordered, voice steady despite the pounding of his own heart. The men moved with practiced precision, each position executed with flawless timing. They were disciplined, trained to function as one entity, yet the chaos pressed in around them, demanding constant vigilance. Sparrow moved carefully, scanning for targets while keeping low behind a partially shattered boulder. Every breath was deliberate, controlled, each movement a negotiation between speed and caution. He caught sight of a faint silhouette on the ridge, an enemy soldier crouched, waiting. He fired a short burst, forcing the man to retreat behind cover, then adjusted his position, maintaining a constant pressure on the enemy. Doc stayed near the center, medic pack slung over his shoulder. He had checked everyone for injuries and patched minor scrapes, but adrenaline and fatigue clouded the process. The SEALs were exposed, and even minor wounds could escalate if ignored. He moved efficiently, ready to respond, keeping one eye on the enemy, one on his brothers. Hawk gestured for a temporary halt, bringing the team together in a low, semicircular formation behind cover. The valley echoed with intermittent gunfire, distant shouts, and the hum of tension. He spoke quickly, quietly, ensuring every word counted. "We're pinned," Hawk began, scanning the men's faces. "They've positioned themselves to control our movements, funneling us into kill zones. We can't hold here forever. We need to adapt, change the rhythm, and take initiative. We improvise. We fight smart. And we trust each other. One misstep and we're done. But I know you can do this. We've faced worse. Ghost, the intelligence officer, chimed in, pointing to the satellite imagery he had memorized. If we can pivot through that narrow pass, he indicated a jagged channel to the east, we can use the terrain to split their line of fire. Minimal exposure, natural cover, and high ground advantage once we're through. Hawk nodded. Good, we move on my signal. Cover fire suppresses them long enough for us to shift. Delta Team takes the lead. Alpha and Charlie provide overlapping suppression. Doc, be ready for injuries. Every second counts. The team prepared. Rifles checked, magazines loaded, communication hand signals rehearsed silently. Every man knew his role and his brother's role. Fear lingered in the edges of their minds, but training and trust were stronger. The SEALs had been in life-or-death scenarios before, but the valley's harsh isolation made every risk feel amplified. Then Hawk gave the signal. A short, sharp hand gesture, almost imperceptible, and the SEALs surged forward. Delta Team moved first, weaving through natural cover, firing short bursts to keep the enemy suppressed. Sparks of bullet fire ricocheted off rocks around them, dust kicked up by ricocheting rounds. Sparrow followed closely, adrenaline sharpening his focus. Every sound, every shadow, every movement was analyzed instantaneously. He fired only when necessary, using cover to shield his position. The valley seemed to contract around him, heightening every sense. Danger was constant, yet so was the discipline ingrained in him. Hawk advanced alongside Delta, binoculars raised, eyes constantly sweeping for threats. His mind worked at a frenetic pace, calculating trajectories, anticipating enemy maneuvers, and planning contingency options. The SEALs were improvising under extreme conditions, turning desperation into calculated action. Each man relied on instinct, experience, and the unspoken bond between brothers in arms. The enemy fired intermittently, but the SEALs' coordinated suppression worked. Hawk signaled Charlie Team to adjust positions, creating overlapping arcs of fire that pinned the attackers. Enemy movement slowed, giving Delta Team the opening they needed. Step by step, the SEALs advanced, each movement measured, controlled, lethal. Sparrow spotted another enemy soldier, attempting to flank them along the eastern slope. He fired a precise burst, forcing the man back behind cover. The sound of bullets striking rock was deafening, but adrenaline kept him steady. Beside him, other SEALs provided covering fire, each man watching the other's six, protecting each other's life as instinct dictated. Doc had moved to check a minor wound on Alpha Team's rear element. The man flinched as he cleaned a shallow bullet graze. "We're good," Doc said, voice calm. "Keep moving." Eyes up, his focus never wavered, balancing care for his brothers with the urgency of survival. As they reached the narrow pass, Hawk raised a hand. The team crouched low, scanning the high ground. The enemy still held the ridges, but the natural rock formations provided critical cover. Ghost pointed to two potential positions ahead where they could regroup and gain a temporary advantage. Hawk nodded. Move fast. Minimal exposure. Suppress and advance. The SEALs surged, moving through the pass with coordinated bursts of fire. Every shot, every step, every breath was purposeful. They were no longer just reacting. They were taking control of the battlefield. Sparrow felt the valley shift around him, a dangerous choreography of movement and fire. Dust and smoke mingled with the heat of the sun, blurring edges and distorting perception. He relied on training, instinct, and the steady rhythm of his brothers beside him. The SEALs had learned to function as a single organism, each man compensating for the other, each aware of the larger strategy. As they reached the secondary position, Hawk signaled a short halt. The SEALs pressed against boulders, rifles raised, catching their breath. The ridge above had been temporarily silenced, and for the first time since the ambush, a fragile calm settled over the group. Every man was alive, but the tension lingered like a shadow, reminding them that the enemy was still near. Hawk quickly assessed the team. Eyes scanned the ridges, rifles checked, positions adjusted. "We've bought ourselves a moment," he whispered. "Not victory, but a chance. We use this to strategize, adapt, and strike back smarter. They underestimated us, they pinned us, but they can't predict everything. We improvise, we fight, we survive." Ghost analyzed the terrain, pointing out the enemy's likely fallback positions. "If we rotate through the channel and utilize the natural cover on the northern ridge, we can disrupt their firing lines and gain an elevation advantage. It's risky, but it's our best chance." Hawk nodded. "Risk is inevitable. The difference between us and them is precision, planning, and trust in each other. We move as one unit. No hesitation. No mistakes. Every second counts." Sparrow exhaled slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly, though his body remained coiled like a spring. The SEALs were alive, but only barely. Every man bore the marks of the firefight, scratches, dust, sweat, and exhaustion etched into every line of their faces. Yet in their eyes burned determination, resolve, forged in the crucible of combat. The team prepared to advance once more, knowing the valley's final challenge was still ahead. The ambush had tested their limits, but it had also revealed their strengths: discipline, coordination, and the unbreakable bond between brothers in arms. They would adapt, improvise, and push forward. Desperation had forced them into strategy, fear had sharpened their instincts, and courage would carry them through whatever lay ahead. The valley remained silent, ominous, and unyielding. But the SEALs were ready. They moved with precision, intelligence, and resolve. Survival was no longer a gamble, it was a calculation, executed with lethal skill, unwavering trust, and the relentless determination of men who refused to yield. And in the heart of the valley, under the oppressive weight of danger, the SEALs pressed forward, ready to face whatever came next. The SEALs pressed forward cautiously, moving from rock to rock, using the narrow valleys and natural cover to shield themselves from enemy fire. Despite their disciplined movement and calculated suppression, the battle had taken a toll. Dust clung to their sweat-soaked faces, lungs burned from exertion, and every muscle ached from hours of constant vigilance. The ambush had tested their nerves, their training, and their ability to function as one unit. Yet the valley had more challenges ahead, and the SEALs knew that survival depended on more than courage. It required external support. Commander Reynolds, Hawk, crouched behind a jagged boulder, scanning the ridges above with binoculars. The enemy positions remained entrenched, and attempts to maneuver were increasingly risky. "We can't keep holding these positions forever," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. His eyes flicked toward Ghost, the intelligence officer. "It's time. Call in support. Airstrike if possible, or reinforcements. We need a shift in the tide." Ghost grabbed the radio, fumbling slightly as his hands shook from adrenaline and fatigue. He keyed the mic, voice steady but tense. "Command, this is Echo Team. Request immediate fire support. We're pinned in the Eastern Valley. Multiple hostiles on high ground. Over." Static crackled through the radio, echoing the harsh terrain's interference. "Echo, repeat. Fire support may be delayed due to terrain and ongoing engagement. Provide coordinates. Over." Hawk quickly relayed the grid coordinates, his mind racing with contingency plans in case support was delayed. Every second counted. The valley was a pressure cooker, the enemy relentless, and their current position increasingly vulnerable. The SEALs could fight, but alone they risked being overwhelmed. Meanwhile, the enemy had begun shifting their positions, trying to anticipate the SEALs' movements. Bullets ricocheted across rocks, some striking dangerously close. The men pressed low, relying on instinct, training, and each other. Hawk's voice cut through the noise. Suppress and hold. Delta Team, cover the northern ridge. Alpha Team, maintain crossfire on the east. We move as soon as possible. Doc, stay ready. Sparrow's fingers tightened around the rifle. Each breath was shallow and calculated. He fired short, controlled bursts, forcing enemy soldiers to maintain cover. Sweat burned his eyes. Grit coated his lips, but he did not hesitate. The SEALs were pinned, but they were disciplined. They did not panic. They calculated, adapting instinctively to every threat. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The radio crackled intermittently, sometimes cutting out entirely, leaving Ghost's voice struggling through static. Command, coordinates repeated. Request immediate extraction or close air support. Situation critical. Hawk's mind raced. He knew that every delay increased the risk of casualties. The SEALs were elite, trained for survival in hostile environments, but even the best training had limits. The terrain, enemy skill, and isolation combined to create a deadly equation. He studied the valley, identifying natural cover, choke points, and possible paths for retreat or maneuver. Every plan had to account for rapid changes. Doc moved silently between positions, checking the team for injuries. Minor scrapes were treated quickly, but the adrenaline and dust made even small wounds feel more severe. Stay focused, he whispered, catching Sparrow's eye. We can't afford hesitation now. Just keep moving when the signal comes. Suddenly, the radio crackled louder, a voice breaking through static with urgency. Echo Team, coordinates received. Fire support en route. Eta 5 minutes. Hold positions and minimize exposure. Over. Relief surged through Hawk, tempered by the knowledge that 5 minutes could feel like an eternity under fire. He signaled the team to maintain defensive positions, rifles trained, eyes scanning, hearts pounding. The enemy would not wait, and neither could they. The valley became a tense waiting game. Every sound was amplified, the whistle of the wind, the shifting of rocks, distant birds taking flight. The SEAL's senses were sharpened to the extreme, every nerve alert, every muscle coiled for action. Hawk moved methodically, scanning, signaling, reinforcing positions. They were survivors, but survival required patience and strategy. Sparrow crouched behind a jagged boulder, feeling the weight of the situation press down. The distant ridges seemed to close in, the enemy's movements deliberate and coordinated. Fear and adrenaline coursed through him, yet he remained focused, trusting his training, his instincts, and his brothers. The SEALs were bound together by experience, discipline, and unspoken loyalty. Without it, the valley would consume them. Time stretched painfully. Enemy soldiers moved cautiously, uncertain of the SEALs' exact positions, trying to exploit any hesitation. Hawk maintained constant communication with Ghost, who monitored radio chatter and relayed enemy movements. They coordinated suppression, flanking, and defensive tactics with precision, each action designed to buy more time for reinforcements. Then, a distant rumble reached them, the unmistakable sound of aircraft engines. The men's hearts leapt. Hawk raised a hand, signaling calm but readiness. Air support is inbound, he whispered. Maintain suppressing fire. Stay sharp. The enemy hesitated, startled by the sudden sound. Bullets still flew sporadically, but the rhythm of attack faltered. The SEALs seized the moment, adjusting positions, tightening formation, and preparing for coordinated movement. Adrenaline surged, transforming fear into calculated focus. Sparrow moved with precision, providing covering fire while Hawk signaled the team to shift toward a slightly higher ridge. Every movement was synchronized, practiced, yet instinct-driven. The valley demanded constant adaptation, and the SEALs were mastering it in real time. Doc scanned the team, checking for any unnoticed injuries. "Everyone okay?" he called quietly. Nods and murmured affirmatives returned, though the exhaustion was evident on every face. The SEALs had endured hours of tension, and the toll was visible, yet their resolve remained unbroken. The sound of aircraft grew louder, and soon the valley was punctuated by distant bursts of gunfire. Support had arrived. The enemy responded, but the shift in dynamics was clear. Bullets ricocheted differently, cover was taken more cautiously, and Hawk could see opportunities forming. "Hold positions until my signal," Hawk commanded. "We move together, coordinated, and take the high ground once we get the opening." "Everyone clear?" The team responded with silent gestures, each man aware of the stakes. The SEALs waited, every second stretching like an eternity. The rumble of engines, the distant echo of gunfire, the shifting dust, all combined into a tense symphony of danger. Then, Hawk gave the signal, a subtle hand movement, and the team surged forward, moving as one. They advanced with precision, suppressing fire, keeping the enemy occupied, while they navigated the treacherous terrain. The valley, once an open trap, now offered fleeting cover as they pressed toward a more defensible position. Every step was a negotiation with death, every movement a testament to skill, trust, and the unbreakable bond among brothers in arms. Minutes passed, each feeling like hours. The SEALs reached a rocky outcrop that offered better cover and observation of the valley floor. Hawk scanned the terrain, noting enemy positions disrupted by incoming support. Relief and adrenaline mixed, but there was no room for complacency. The battle was not yet over, and every second required focus. Sparrow exhaled, letting the tension ease slightly, but his eyes never wavered from the ridges above. He had survived the ambush, endured the hours of suppression, and now witnessed reinforcements changing the battle's dynamics. But he knew the valley was unforgiving, and the enemy was not finished. Hawk surveyed his team. Every man was alert, weary, but ready. "Good work," he said quietly. "We've held, we've survived, and support is here. But remember, we're not out of danger. Stay sharp, stay low, and be ready to move on my signal." Eyes open, instincts sharp, the valley, harsh and indifferent, remained a constant threat. But for the first time since the ambush, a fragile hope glimmered. The SEALs had called for help, and help had arrived. Their survival was no longer a question of skill alone. Timing, coordination, and support had shifted the odds. Sparrow allowed himself a brief moment of reflection, feeling the adrenaline slowly ebb. Dust coated his skin, sweat clung to his hair, and muscles ached from hours of tension. Yet he felt alive, focused, and ready. The SEALs had endured the storm of fire, improvisation, and strategy, and now reinforced, they had the opportunity to turn the tide. Hawk scanned the valley one last time, eyes sharp, mind racing. The enemy remained dangerous, but the balance had shifted. Coordination, patience, and trust had bought them this moment. The SEALs were alive, aware, and ready to continue the fight. And somewhere deep in the valley, the whisper of fear that had haunted them, "God isn't with us," was now tempered with the knowledge that support had arrived. Survival was never guaranteed, but teamwork, discipline, and timing had created a chance. The SEALs prepared to press forward once more, ready to face the valley's next challenge with unwavering resolve, trusting their training, each other, and the reinforcements that now echoed through the air. The roar of aircraft engines cut through the valley, slicing through the lingering tension like a blade. The SEALs, crouched behind jagged rocks, felt the shift immediately. The enemy, previously emboldened by their strategic advantage on the high ridges, hesitated. The sudden thunder above threw dust and debris into the air, forcing momentary pauses in firing as soldiers sought cover. For the first time in hours, the SEALs sensed a tangible shift in the tide of battle. Commander Reynolds, Hawk, signaled the team to maintain suppressing fire. "Hold them. Keep pressure on the ridges." His voice was calm, authoritative, carrying over the chaos. Each man understood this was the opening they had been waiting for. Every second counted, and the window for maneuver was fleeting. Delta teams surged forward under the temporary lull, advancing with controlled bursts of fire. Bullets ricocheted off rocks around them, echoing through the valley in a staccato rhythm. Hawk kept his eyes on the enemy, observing the disruption caused by the aerial presence. The opposing forces were unprepared for coordinated air support, combined with the SEALs' precise maneuvers. Sparrow felt his pulse quicken not with fear this time, but with a cautious sense of relief. His rifle moved with his instincts, suppressing enemy positions that dared to peek from cover. Dust and smoke filled the air, obscuring visibility, but the SEALs adapted, leveraging every shadow, boulder, and depression for cover. They were trained for these moments, yet the reality of enemy fire and the unpredictable environment still tested every nerve. Doc stayed close to the center of the formation, monitoring the team for injuries while remaining ready to respond to the chaos around him. Even with reinforcements, the SEALs could not let their guard down. Every step forward was calculated, every movement deliberate. He checked Sparrow briefly, nodding with approval. "You're solid. Stay sharp. Keep moving." The sound of gunfire changed. Enemy forces were retreating, confused and pinned by the combined threat of SEAL suppression and aerial assault. Hawk seized the opportunity. He motioned for Alpha and Charlie teams to push forward, maintaining coordinated fire while securing critical positions. The valley, once a trap, became a battlefield the SEALs could manipulate. From the cliffs above, jets strafed enemy positions, their precision and timing throwing insurgents into disarray. The SEALs pressed the advantage, advancing through previously deadly areas with newfound momentum. Every man moved with lethal intent, exploiting the chaos to reclaim control over the terrain. Sparrow crouched behind a boulder, firing with precision at a retreating enemy sniper. The sound of bullets ricocheting off rock became almost rhythmic, a grim melody of survival. Around him, the other SEALs advanced, maintaining formations, communicating through hand signals and instinctual coordination. The valley had tested them, but their response was methodical, disciplined, and deadly. Hawk scanned the ridges, binoculars moving rapidly across the terrain. Enemy breaking formation. Keep pressure. Watch flanks. He barked, signaling Delta to advance along the northern slope. The SEALs' movements were synchronized, a living testament to training, discipline, and trust. Ghost monitored radio chatter, noting enemy attempts to regroup. "They're disorganized," he reported. "Momentum is on our side if we push strategically." Hawk nodded, using the intel to adjust the team's advance. They could not afford reckless pursuit. The valley was still dangerous, and the enemy retained pockets of resistance. Every maneuver was calculated to maximize advantage while minimizing exposure. As they advanced, Sparrow noticed a figure attempting to set up a defensive position on a ridge. He signaled Hawk, who gave a subtle nod. A coordinated burst from Alpha and Charlie teams neutralized the threat, forcing the enemy to retreat further. The SEALs' combination of precision fire and coordinated movement created a lethal rhythm, gradually tipping the balance in their favor. Doc moved with the team, ready to treat any injuries from sudden bursts of fire. The combination of adrenaline, exhaustion, and relief created a strange clarity. Fear was present, yes, but overshadowed by controlled focus. Every man relied on the training, trust, and coordination that had carried them through hours of relentless combat. The enemy's morale faltered visibly. Insurgents who had once dominated the high ridges now struggled to find cover, disoriented by the dual threat of SEAL suppression and aerial assault. Hawk capitalized on the disruption. Push forward. Take the ridges. Secure observation points. Keep pressure. He commanded, voice cutting through the chaotic din. Sparrow advanced alongside Delta Team, moving from boulder to boulder, suppressing enemy positions while maintaining a watchful eye for threats. Dust and smoke blurred the edges of the battlefield, but his focus never wavered. Each movement was deliberate, each shot calculated. The SEALs had endured the ambush, adapted under fire, and now exploited the chaos to gain ground. Hawk's eyes scanned the ridges, identifying enemy fallback positions. Alpha, take the eastern ridge. Delta, push the northern slope. Charlie, cover their retreat and maintain crossfire. Move! The teams responded instantly, executing precise maneuvers honed through years of training. Coordination, trust, and timing became their greatest weapons. The valley, once a trap, began to feel more like an arena of controlled engagement. Enemy fire became sporadic, hesitant, and disorganized. The SEALs pressed the advantage, advancing strategically, securing critical positions while minimizing exposure. The combined pressure of suppression and air support created opportunities that the men exploited with lethal efficiency. Sparrow's heart pounded not from fear, but from the intensity of the battle and the satisfaction of reclaiming control. His muscles burned, sweat mixed with dust, but he moved with precision, instincts guiding every step. Around him, the SEALs advanced like shadows, lethal, disciplined, and unstoppable when united. Doc stayed vigilant, treating minor injuries on the move, providing reassurance and remaining alert for new threats. Every SEAL depended on one another, not only for survival, but for the psychological support necessary in such extreme conditions. The valley had tested them, but their cohesion was now their greatest strength. Hawk finally surveyed the ridges. Enemy forces were breaking, disorganized, and retreating. The tide had shifted dramatically. The valley, once a deadly trap, now allowed the SEALs to dictate terms of engagement. Precision, timing, and reinforcements had combined to turn desperation into opportunity. Maintain positions. Hawk commanded, sensing potential counterattacks. Observe, suppress, and control the high ground. We consolidate before pushing further. Eyes open, everyone. The SEALs obeyed instantly, disciplined and alert despite fatigue. Every man knew that victory was not complete until the valley was fully secured and every threat neutralized. Sparrow crouched behind a boulder, scanning the ridges. The enemy had abandoned some positions entirely, leaving them exposed to observation and targeting. The SEALs pressed cautiously, securing vantage points one by one. Momentum had shifted, but the danger was never fully gone. The valley was unforgiving, and complacency could be lethal. As the minutes passed, the SEALs regrouped, consolidating positions along the northern and eastern ridges. Hawk signaled a brief halt, allowing teams to catch their breath, check ammunition, and reassess the terrain. The battle, while far from over, had tilted in their favor thanks to the unexpected reinforcements and their disciplined execution of tactics. Sparrow finally allowed himself a breath, wiping sweat and dust from his face. He glanced at his brothers in arms, noting the exhaustion etched into every line of their faces, yet also the resolve burning in their eyes. They had survived the ambush, adapted under fire, and now reclaimed control. The valley was no longer entirely a trap. It was a battlefield they could navigate and dominate. Hawk surveyed the team one last time before speaking. Good work, everyone. We've held, we've adapted, and we've taken advantage of reinforcements. But remember, this is still hostile territory. Stay vigilant. Move deliberately. Protect each other. We finish this mission together. The SEALs nodded, muscles aching, adrenaline still surging, but spirits lifted. The valley had tested them beyond measure, but discipline, training, trust, and timely reinforcements had allowed them to seize the initiative. Survival was no longer merely hope. It was skill, strategy, and brotherhood. Sparrow exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the battle begin to ease slightly. Dust coated his skin, sweat mingled with grit, but for the first time since the ambush, hope and momentum outweighed fear. The SEALs had survived the impossible, adapted under fire, and now commanded the battlefield, at least for the moment. And in the valley, once a place of deadly threat and chaos, the SEALs pressed forward, united, disciplined, and ready to face whatever the enemy and the terrain would throw at them next. The valley, once a labyrinth of danger and death, had begun to quiet. The distant echo of aerial gunfire faded, leaving only the soft whistle of the wind through jagged rocks and the faint rustle of disturbed vegetation. The SEALs crouched behind, their secured positions on the northern and eastern ridges, rifles at the ready, but movements slowed by exhaustion. The enemy had retreated, disrupted by reinforcements and the disciplined pressure of the SEALs. Yet Hawk knew better than to believe the fight was over. The valley could be unforgiving long after bullets had ceased. Commander Reynolds, Hawk, scanned the landscape carefully, calculating routes for extraction and potential hazards along the valley floor. Every ridge and boulder could conceal a remnant enemy or a hidden trap. He signaled Delta Team to begin preparing the path for a tactical withdrawal. "We move systematically," Hawk instructed. "Maintain cover, maintain formation, stay alert. Exhaustion makes mistakes lethal." Sparrow moved cautiously, muscles burning from hours of tension, sweat, and dust. His heart still raced, yet his training guided every step. Every rock, every crevice, every shadow was observed for threats. Though reinforcements had shifted the tide, they had no guarantee of safety until the team reached extraction points. The valley, beautiful and merciless, demanded respect at every turn. Doc followed closely, monitoring the team for injuries and fatigue. Minor scrapes had worsened under hours of exertion, and the unrelenting dust and sun had taken their toll. "Stay hydrated, stay focused," he whispered, offering water and reassurance where possible. The SEALs understood medical attention could wait, but survival required continuous vigilance. Hawk led the retreat with precision, signaling Alpha and Charlie, teams to cover the flanks, while Delta moved along the narrow valley pass. Each movement was deliberate, designed to minimize exposure to potential enemy fire while maintaining control over the terrain. The valley had tested their limits, and now it demanded patience, calculation, and careful execution. Sparrow's mind wandered briefly, reflecting on the hours of chaos, the ambush, and the relentless pressure of survival. Fear had been a constant companion, yet it had sharpened instincts and forced focus. He recalled the moments when the team had been pinned, when enemy fire had swept over them, and the fleeting, terrifying thought that God isn't with us had echoed in his mind. Now, with reinforcements and momentum in their favor, that fear had shifted, tempered by trust in his brothers in arms and the shared experience that bound them together. Hawk motioned for the team to pause behind a large boulder, using the opportunity to survey the next section of the valley. "We're not safe yet," he reminded them quietly. "The extraction point is still several clicks away, and the terrain remains hazardous. Enemy remnants may be regrouping. Eyes up, stay sharp, and move deliberately." The SEALs adjusted their formation, with Delta leading, Alpha covering the rear, and Charlie securing the flanks. Every step was measured, every movement synchronized. The weight of their gear pressed heavily on their bodies, muscles burning from exhaustion, yet training and instinct allowed them to function seamlessly as a unit. Sparrow's thoughts returned to the earlier chaos of the ambush, the way the enemy had pinned him, the deafening noise of gunfire, the blinding dust, and the adrenaline that had surged through his veins. He felt the lingering fear in his chest, but also the sense of pride and relief in surviving, adapting, and ultimately reclaiming control. The valley had tested them, but it had also revealed the strength of unity, skill, and unspoken trust. Doc moved alongside him, offering water and checking minor injuries. "You're doing fine," he said quietly, voice calm. "Focus on each step, don't rush. The mission isn't over until we're clear." Sparrow nodded, appreciating the reassurance. In these moments, the bond between team members beyond training, beyond orders, was palpable. They were brothers who had faced death together and had survived. As they progressed through the narrow pass, Hawk noted subtle signs of enemy movement-displaced rocks, faint footprints, and traces of smoke. He adjusted their route, leading the team along a slightly higher ridge that offered better cover and visibility. The valley, once an unpredictable trap, now became a calculated path they could navigate. The sun had climbed high, beating down relentlessly on the men, yet the SEALs pressed forward with unwavering discipline. Every step, every glance, every breath was executed with purpose. The weight of exhaustion was present, but focus and training overpowered fatigue. The valley had tested them physically, mentally, and emotionally, but they were determined to emerge intact. Sparrow allowed his mind a brief reflection on survival and teamwork. Each SEAL's presence had been a lifeline. Their skill, trust, and shared responsibility had turned a potentially deadly ambush into a mission that could still succeed. Fear had been a teacher, danger a crucible, and the bond between them a shield stronger than any armor. Hawk paused briefly to survey the valley below. The enemy was scattered, retreating, but their presence lingered in the form of hidden positions and potential threats. "Keep moving," he reminded them. "No unnecessary risks. The valley has teeth still, and we must respect them." The SEALs continued their careful descent, moving through tight passes, across rocky ridges, and around jagged boulders. Bullets were no longer immediate threats, but the terrain itself posed constant danger. A misstep could result in twisted ankles, falls, or worse. Each movement required focus, precision, and trust in one another's vigilance. Sparrow glanced around at the men beside him. Each face bore the marks of hours of relentless combat, dust, sweat, fatigue, but their eyes held determination. They had survived the ambush, adapted under fire, leveraged reinforcements, and now navigated the valley's hazards with calculated discipline. The experience had changed them. It had tested limits, revealed weaknesses, and reinforced the strength of brotherhood. Doc checked on a minor wound, bandaging it quickly as they moved. "Stay tight," he instructed. "We're not clear yet. Watch each other's backs." His calm authority and presence provided reassurance, a reminder that even in exhaustion, vigilance was paramount. As they approached a slightly wider section of the valley, Hawk allowed a brief pause to consolidate positions and review the route ahead. "Extraction is still a click away," he informed the team quietly. "We maintain this formation. Keep low, keep moving, and stay aware. The mission isn't over until we reach safety." Sparrow took a deep breath, letting the tension ease slightly while remaining alert. He reflected on the hours of engagement, the ambush, the chaos, the shift in momentum, and the arrival of reinforcements. Every moment had been a test, yet they had survived through discipline, skill, and unwavering trust in one another. Valley had challenged them, but it had also revealed the power of unity and the resilience of the human spirit under extreme conditions. Hawk signaled Delta to lead through the final stretch, using the terrain to maintain cover while advancing toward extraction points. The men moved like shadows, silent and precise, each step measured, each glance vigilant. The valley, once a trap, had become a gauntlet they navigated with mastery born of training, experience, and necessity. As the SEALs continued their withdrawal, Sparrow allowed himself a moment of reflection on the lessons learned. Fear, adrenaline, danger, and exhaustion had pushed them to their limits, but the bond among the men had been stronger. Survival had depended not on individual skill alone, but on the cohesion, trust, and unspoken understanding that bound them together. Finally, the extraction point appeared in sight, a small clearing beyond a jagged ridge, safe for helicopter pickup. Hawk signaled the team to slow, maintain cover, and prepare for final movement. Relief mingled with caution. The valley had been merciless, and complacency could still be deadly. Sparrow, Doc, and the others moved with careful precision, reaching the clearing while keeping rifles raised and eyes scanning. The helicopter rotor blades stirred dust, a reminder of both danger and salvation. The SEALs had endured the impossible, survived the ambush, leveraged reinforcements, and navigated the treacherous terrain with discipline and skill. Hawk allowed himself a brief moment to breathe, looking over his team. Exhaustion, sweat, and dirt marked every face, yet determination, focus, and relief shone in their eyes. The valley had tested them in every conceivable way, but they had endured. They had adapted, survived, and emerged with both skill and brotherhood intact. Sparrow finally exhaled fully, the tension of the valley giving way to cautious relief. The extraction was imminent, the danger receding, yet the lessons of the battle remained. Vivid fear sharpened focus, adversity revealed strength, and trust in one another was the ultimate shield. The SEALs had survived, and though the valley had left its mark, it had also reinforced the power of discipline, unity, and unwavering resolve. The distant whir of helicopter blades grew louder, echoing through the valley with a promise of safety. The SEALs, crouched behind jagged rocks and battered by hours of relentless engagement, felt a surge of relief tempered by exhaustion. Commander Reynolds, Hawk, scanned the clearing ahead and the surrounding ridges, ensuring the landing zone was secure before signaling the team. Every movement, every precaution mattered. Even in the final moments, the valley demanded respect. Delta Team, cover the perimeter, Hawk ordered. Alpha and Charlie, provide suppression if necessary. Doc, ready to assist anyone injured during boarding. His voice carried the authority of experience, calm but firm, grounding the team after hours of chaos. Each man moved instinctively, following drills ingrained through years of training. The valley had pushed them to their limits, but precision and discipline guided their every step. Sparrow crouched low, rifle at the ready, scanning the ridges for potential threats. Dust swirled in the sunlight, mixing with the sweat on his skin and the grime etched from the battle. He could feel the weight of exhaustion pressing on him, yet focus remained sharp, instincts primed for any last-minute danger. The enemy might have been routed, but the SEALs knew complacency could be deadly. Doc moved between the men, checking bandages and monitoring fatigue. Stay hydrated. Stay aware. We're not clear until everyone's in, he reminded them. His voice carried reassurance, but no false comfort. The reality of the mission demanded constant vigilance. Even the strongest warriors could falter in moments of distraction. The helicopter descended steadily, rotor wash churning dust and debris, filling the air with a blinding haze. Hawk signaled the team to move toward the clearing in coordinated bursts, maintaining cover and spacing to minimize vulnerability. Each man pressed forward with methodical precision, muscles aching, hearts pounding, but minds focused. The extraction point was near, yet the danger of the valley still lingered like a shadow. Sparrow reached the edge of the clearing, ducking low as the helicopter touched down. The ramp lowered with a mechanical groan, providing a lifeline to the outside world. Yet even here, the team remained disciplined, rifles sweeping the perimeter, eyes scanning for threats. Every movement was deliberate, every step calculated. Survival had been earned through vigilance and coordination, not granted freely. Hawk allowed a brief glance at his team. Sweat-streaked, dust-coated, and bruised, they were still alive, still intact. The hours of relentless ambush, improvised strategy, and coordinated assault had left their mark, but their training, trust, and sheer determination had prevailed. He gave the signal to board, and the SEALs moved with practiced efficiency, one by one climbing the ramp into the relative safety of the helicopter. Sparrow finally stepped inside, feeling the oppressive tension of the valley give way to the roar of rotor blades and the thin smell of fuel. He sank slightly, taking a moment to breathe deeply, letting relief wash over him while remaining alert. The battle wasn't entirely over, but the extraction marked a turning point to return from the heart of danger to the security of trained hands and controlled conditions. Doc was the last to board, ensuring every man was accounted for and stabilizing minor injuries during the ascent. His calm efficiency had been a constant anchor throughout the ordeal, providing both physical care and psychological reassurance. Every SEAL owed him gratitude beyond words. As the helicopter lifted off, the valley receded beneath them, a jagged scar of dust, rock, and blood. The sunlight glinted off the ridges, illuminating the harsh terrain that had tested them so brutally. Sparrow gazed down, reflecting on the battle, the ambush, the reinforcements, and the moments of sheer terror and disciplined action that had defined their survival. Every second, every decision had been critical. Every man had relied not on luck, but on training, trust, and courage. Hawk exhaled slowly, feeling the tension in his shoulders ease slightly, though the weight of responsibility lingered. The men were safe, but he knew the mental toll of the valley would follow them. Combat left invisible scars, a permanent reminder of the edge between life and death. He looked around at his team, exhausted, battered, yet resolute, and felt a quiet pride. They had survived, adapted, and overcome a near impossible scenario. Sparrow's mind wandered to the earlier whisper that had haunted them during the ambush. God isn't with us. For hours, that fear had echoed in their minds, a reflection of vulnerability and mortality. But now, with survival in hand and reinforcements' timely intervention, he felt the statement transform. It had not been divine favor that had saved them, but discipline, training, coordination, and the unbreakable bond between brothers in arms. Survival had been earned, not granted. The helicopter banked, gaining altitude, and the SEALs finally allowed themselves to relax just enough to rest their bodies while maintaining the professional awareness required until fully clear. The valley's ridges receded beneath them, a silent testament to the ordeal endured. Every scar, bruise, and cut marked a story of survival, resilience, and the relentless execution of strategy under fire. Hawk addressed the team quietly but firmly, eyes scanning each face. We've made it out alive, but remember what the valley taught us. Discipline, trust, and preparation saved us today. Complacency would have been fatal. Keep your focus, honor the training, and take care of each other. We're brothers first, warriors always. Sparrow nodded, feeling the weight of the words settle deep. Every moment in the valley had been a lesson. The unforgiving nature of combat, the reliance on one another, and the thin line between survival and disaster. Each man had been tested, and each had endured. The helicopter's engines roared around them, a mechanical heartbeat that carried them toward safety, but could never erase the intensity of what they had survived. Doc moved to check supplies and administer minor treatment for exhaustion and dehydration. His efficiency was a reminder that survival depended not only on skill with weapons, but also on care, support, and attention to the human body under extreme stress. The SEALs were warriors, yes, but human first. In fact, the valley had not allowed them to forget. As the helicopter banked toward the rendezvous point, Sparrow allowed himself a quiet moment of reflection. The valley had demanded everything: focus, skill, trust, courage, and had left its mark in dust, sweat, and grit. Yet it had also reinforced the bonds between men, the precision of training, and the ability to endure beyond what seemed possible. Survival had been earned through unity, action, and unwavering determination. Hawk scanned the team one final time, ensuring no one had been left behind. Every protocol followed. "We moved together. We survived together," he said quietly, almost to himself. The valley had tested them to the extreme, but it had also shown what men, trained and bound by trust, could endure and achieve. The helicopter lifted higher, the valley shrinking beneath them. A jagged, sunlit reminder of danger survived. The team allowed themselves a moment of quiet camaraderie, sharing brief smiles, nods, and acknowledgments. The physical and emotional toll was immense, but together they had endured and triumphed. The SEALs' journey through the valley was a testament to resilience, courage, and the unbreakable bonds forged in the crucible of combat. Sparrow exhaled fully, feeling both relief and exhaustion in equal measure. The valley had challenged everything he knew about fear, strategy, and survival. But now, lifted by rotor blades and bound by brotherhood, he understood the depth of what they had accomplished. Every SEAL aboard the helicopter carried the scars of battle, the lessons of endurance, and the shared memory of facing death and surviving. Hawk finally allowed himself to relax, the weight of responsibility easing as the helicopter carried them away from the valley. The mission had been brutal, yet executed with precision, courage, and unbreakable trust. They were alive, battered, and wiser forever, changed by the valley and each other. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows over the rugged terrain below, the SEALs settled in for the flight back to safety. The valley, silent once more, bore witness to their endurance. It would remain a place of trial, memory, and reflection, a chapter of survival written in dust, sweat, and courage. For Sparrow, Hawk, Doc, and the rest of the team, the valley was no longer just terrain. It was a testament to what men can endure when discipline, training, trust, and unity are wielded against impossible odds. They had survived the ambush, adapted under fire, leveraged reinforcements, and emerged intact, proving that even in the face of overwhelming danger, humanity, courage, and brotherhood could prevail. And as the helicopter carried them into the fading light, the SEALs allowed themselves the quiet satisfaction of survival, the hard-earned relief of extraction, and the unspoken understanding that the valley had tested them in ways they would never forget, but they had endured together.